Hey everyone, you're listening to Midlife Matters, the podcast for women parenting teens and young adults. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Mindy and Julie to talk about all the topics that keep women in the middle years up at night. Today's episode is the second half of a great conversation we had about raising teenagers. You can hear the first part of this conversation in episode 3. Let's listen as we pick up where we left off last week. Let's take a look at girls versus boys.
Abby Ray and I have very similar interests. We both are kind of on the same wavelength. We both love the same things. We have a lot of the same interests. We love the same music. We both love to dance and be a little crazy and get Starbucks and go shopping and adventure. I'm having a harder time, though, because I don't naturally have the same interests as my teenage son now. And so as much as I think he's like an awesome kid and I really love to spend time with him, we don't just easily want to do the same things. So I want to hang out with him, but it's not as like it's not the things that I would choose to do or and so our relationship is just so different. And so he's only my second oldest and I've got the third one coming up. So yeah, I would love to hear from you guys.
Like you, Mindy, with boys, I find it harder to find things in common with. Like what's harder to go and do something with your son? He doesn't want to go shopping. He doesn't want to go to a movie with his mom necessarily. He doesn't like coffee. So it's just kind of hard to find the times,
I've tried to bribe. I am not above bribing anymore. I would not have bribed my younger children. I will totally bribe my teenager. I'll buy you whatever you want. Just come with me and be pleasant to be with. Talk to me.
Now, we'll say now that I have a 24-year-old and he's married, he will call and say, Mom, can you have lunch today? So that's really sweet.
Thank you for telling me that.
Yeah. So he will eventually.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like boys, they like to connect over food. So definitely going out to dinner or lunch. My boys would love it. And I didn't do this probably as much as I should have, but I did do it more than what my normal bent would be. Go to a sporting game. Like, Isaac and I have gone to a Vanderbilt game and you learn a lot. You get to watch them in an element that they feel comfortable in and they're kind of teaching you because I don't always know every single rule and they think that's sort of funny. One time I went on it was Isaac's birthday, but he didn't want to bring a friend. So Davis said, well, then I'll bring 2 friends. And Steve had a lot of airline points at the time. It was me, Steve, Davis, 2 friends, and Isaac. We all flew to Cleveland and saw the Cleveland Browns play the Titans. I had never been to a professional football game in my life, but it was such a fun weekend. I loved hearing those boys talk and have conversations. I loved doing that with them. I mean, I think if you just can pick out some key things, events that you can go to together, they remember that and talk about that for a long time afterward.
Right.
Definitely.
And you always end up having way more fun than you would have. I just think that you can do things for your boys that you wouldn't do for other people. It might be too boring of an event, even if you were going to go to it with your husband. But if your son wants to go, I'm all in.
Right.
Because I have this short season of time to spend this time with you. And so whatever you want to do, I'm willing. You just have to find that thing for Grant.
He's so enjoyable to be with, but like we don't just naturally have the same interests. So we don't just sit like he doesn't want to watch the Hallmark Christmas movies and I don't get it.
Right.
Why not?
Yeah, I will say.
But I will watch a football game with him. He just won't sit still long enough.
Yeah, I will say that with my boys too. I've tried to always, and we haven't always succeeded because there's not always a good show, but we've tried to have shows that we like to watch together. If you can have something that they like to sit down and watch with you, that is a bonding experience. And we've enjoyed that. And we'll still talk about, that season that we binge watched this or, that show that we really enjoyed.
I do like that. And you're right. Actually, we used to watch Monk together.
Mm.
And
That was
all
our
of
show too.
yeah, all of the boys love and in Abby, like all of us could watch Monk. And then Grant started watching Psych. And
Uh-huh.
so we all was like, okay, well, we'll watch Psych, even as dumb as these guys are.
Right.
But yeah, we don't have a show right now. So I am excited. I long to spend time with them. And I have learned that cooking food,
Mm.
I've cooked so much more since we've moved to Pennsylvania. It's the only way that my boys will come sit around the table.
Mhm.
Is I can bribe them with I will cook all day long to
Mhm.
try to get their attention.
David, my youngest, likes because he still lives here at the house.
Yes.
He asks me every morning what's for dinner.
Mhm.
Oh, that's
And
cute.
because he said he wants to know if it's a look forward to it kind of day or a dread it kind of day.
Ooh,
And you
nice.
probably don't ever want it to be a dread it kind of day.
No, I've
Exactly.
learned how to make it always a look forward to
I
kind of
love
day.
that. Well,
Yeah.
now that Abby Ray's in college, I asked her what kind of foods she wanted the very first time she came home, which was just last month for her fall break. She said, I don't want to go out to eat at all. I want you to cook. I want the Mexican chicken and I want the black bean corn and feta dip and the homemade chocolate chip cookies. And boy, I had everything stocked. And I made the soups that she liked and it was all homemade stuff that she wanted. She
Yes.
craved it.
So we also had a question that was, what does family dinner look like with teens? We're kind of saying how great it is with older kids, but for the mom that's sitting there with the 13, the 14, the 15-year-old, what does family dinner look like?
You know how with your relationship status on Facebook, I term this, it's complicated.
Yeah. In what ways, Mindy? Let us know.
Well, let's see. As they get older, they're just not there. Like
Mhm.
with with Abby and Grant both, they've had sports or activities. You know, they're not always there in the evenings. I'm thrilled when they're actually home to eat with the rest of us. And then or I'm constantly like, okay, no phones at the table. Stop looking at your phone. Put your phone away. Hey, go
Mhm.
put your phone on the counter. I'm trying to talk to you. I just made this dinner. Can you
No, we have
stop
those
touching your brother?
conversations.
Leave your brother alone.
Very true.
It's like we've got toddlers with these big bodies.
And you've cooked and put your heart and soul into it,
Yeah.
and no one's really paying attention to the food at that point.
Like they
It's
scarf
all
it down and
about
they're gone.
behavior, and you were in your mind picturing, oh, we'll all sit down. They'll say, thank you, Mom, for this wonderful meal, and we'll have a real conversation. And
Say,
oh, it's
yeah,
not
how was
like
your
that.
day? Tell me about the things you loved about your day. Nobody wants to talk about that.
Yeah,
No.
or their own day. I'd really love for them to talk about their own day, but
Just
they
tell me.
definitely don't want to talk about that.
I know. Good. Fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So
Ju-
how about you, Julie?
Gosh, I'm trying to remember family dinners because we only have the three of us here now. So it's a little bit different. I mean, we tried to have family dinners most nights of the week. That was an important thing. And we tried not to have too many activities at night or in the evening. It was complicated in that my kids didn't all like the same food. So
Mhm.
now it's a little bit more fun to cook because I can please one child.
Right.
Harder to make them all three happy at the same time. So yeah, and it was frustrating to spend all that time preparation and it seemed to just go by so quickly because they didn't want to sit there and have all these great meaningful conversations. It was
Right.
eat and be done.
Right. So what's amazing is that you do somehow move from that stage to a stage where your kids will sit around the table and talk. And I don't know how you get there.
Right.
It's just
It just happens.
like that door closing thing. One day you're in the miserable dinner stage and the next
Yeah.
dinner is pleasant again.
Right.
Right.
I had also looked at family vacation and entertainment. I think we kind of covered that, but just I know that it can be discouraging in the teenage years to want to do family things together.
Yes.
And one or more kids cannot get on board or they're fighting with their younger siblings. And you know that they should be out of that stage by now and should be able to recognize the fact that mom and dad have spent a lot of time and money on this activity. And all we want to do
Right.
is see some smiles.
Exactly. Yes. That was something about the dinner time hour I was going to say. I did learn that it's worth it to leave the house sometimes. it is worth the money to go out to eat. Of course, then
Mhm.
everyone's fighting about where to go. But if you just
Right.
tell them all you don't have a choice, mom and dad are picking,
Mhm.
sometimes leaving the house and getting out of all of the things that cause distractions and maybe even stressors, leaving the phones in the car,
That's a great point.
that it's worth the money sometimes to go out to eat to get their attention.
Mhm. I think that's one of the fun things about family vacation is you
Mm.
do get to see your kids in a different light, and they do tend
Yeah.
to act better, and when you do go out to eat, they tend to act a little more adult and be more willing to sit around the table and discuss and have a nice memory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have a captive audience there
Right.
because
Yes.
you have to stay there a little while.
It's almost like you want the waitress to take her time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was one of the best things. We've only been on one cruise, but the
Oh.
cruise we went on, there was no cell phone service.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
nobody had a phone, and the dinners were long,
Yes.
maybe 2 hours.
Oh,
Right. I
wow.
love that.
And every night, that was the thing I looked forward to the most. That was the highlight of the cruise for me, was that we were going to sit there for 2 hours, and everybody wanted to talk
Right.
Sure.
because we were all having fun all day.
Yeah. I think that
Absolutely.
that sounds like the best thing about a cruise too, is the fact that I didn't cook the meal and
Yeah.
everybody will sit around and enjoy the table together.
What do you think worked well in helping to foster a good relationship with your teenagers? And what do you think didn't work well?
So that's a hard one.
Yeah, I actually asked my children to
Oh,
help me
Oh,
okay.
with this. I wanted to
Yeah.
hear what they said, and I didn't want to tell them what their siblings had said.
oh,
And they all said spending time. They all
oh.
had time in their answer, lots and lots of time. I know John liked to spend one-on-one time with them because he had a very low tolerance for the whole sibling rivalry. And
Right,
Mm.
we
right.
had a lot of that, like just picking at each other and
Yes.
Mhm.
fighting, and it was just very annoying. So he would take one of them, and it was just, heaven on earth with one kid. They were
Right.
perfect.
Oh,
Right, right.
love it.
So he's taken the boys to a lot of Boston Red Sox games. He's taking them sailing. He took Molly sailing in the Gulf.
Ah,
Just movie nights, dinner nights. We've played a lot of games together, and homeschooling, we've just spent a ton of time. And they just all said they appreciated how much time we spent with them and getting involved in their interest. And
That's so validating and I'm sure made you feel great.
yeah, because I wasn't sure from one of my kids that I would hear that.
Uh-huh.
Because he was the one who maybe on vacation was upset about missing things that were going on at home, or
Mhm.
right.
not always on board with everything. But that was what he said, was just how much time we spent traveling and just doing really fun things together. And he even mentioned, being a homeschool mom, being his teacher, that he really
Oh, wow.
appreciated all of the time. So
Oh,
that did
that's wonderful.
that did make me feel really good.
Yeah. How about you,
That's
Mindy? What did you
impressive.
put down?
First of all, praying over your kids constantly. I pray for opportunities,
Mhm.
and pray for opportunities to talk to them, to get to know them. And then when we're together, the Lord always does provide those opportunities also. Like if I see something in their life that concerns me, I pray for them first. I don't start nagging the kid
Mm. Mhm.
first, but really praying over it, whether it be grades or a character flaw that I see in my kid or a friend that concerns me.
Mhm.
Um, but then also just getting to know what interests them. I was always am always very excited to learn their friends' names.
Right.
And right now that we've moved to a new place, just trying to learn the names of the people that my boys are getting to know, stalking their Instagram accounts so I learn what their faces are and like, oh yeah, I know who Liam is. I know who Mason is. And
Mhm.
so then being in their world. So then if they tell me something about a friend, to follow up with it, to actually care and be sincere about the things that are really important to my kid.
Mhm.
Having their friends over to your house, throwing parties for them. My kids always have loved, they can tell, um, they feel loved when I've thrown a party. And then speaking truth and love. I know that could be taken negatively, but I think that my kids know that I don't see them as perfect beings.
Mm-hmm.
If there's something that they have asked me about, that I will say genuinely, look, I know that this is something that you struggle with, and it's something that I'm praying with you for. How can I help? But being aware that they have flaws and then telling them that I know that I have flaws.
Mm-hmm.
So it's having a real relationship.
Right. You need to keep showing up. You
Oh,
need to
yeah.
keep trying. And there's not just one magic bullet for every kid. You're going to have to figure out what reaches that kid, and you have to be available and be around. Sometimes you're maybe not even really spending time together, but you are in the house. You have made yourself available. When they get home, you're home. If they get home late at night, if it's not too late, you're up to ask some questions and you're showing up every day. And I think that they can kind of take that for granted in the background, but it's also a real security thing for them to know, well, my parents are going to be home when I get home. So I'll be able to talk about this with them, or they're going to ask me some questions.
Right. Oh, I love
Yeah,
that.
that's something my youngest said was even though he's not the most communicative about deep personal things, he
Mhm.
said, I just really appreciated that you and dad seemed to always be home. You were always there.
Oh,
And you just felt like we were continuously talking, which is funny because I didn't see that from him because he doesn't share a lot of personal stuff, but he is always talking. There's
Mm-hmm.
always conversation. And that really made him feel secure. And
Right.
he still likes that. He's 20, but that since he lives here, still he likes it when we're home, even if we're not engaged with him.
Right. Just having someone else in the house
Yeah,
available to say the passing comment to can
yeah,
make a
mhm.
really big difference.
yeah.
Is it a lost cause getting your teenager to talk to you? I think we've kind of established that it's not, but it is work.
It
It
is
is work.
work. Yeah. I had one though that talked a lot and then two not so much. When I was thinking about this question, I kind of teared up for a little bit because our oldest son, who is the most talkative, he's always shared things with me. We used to laugh because no matter how late he came in at night, either like from a date or a party or a shift at work, he would knock on our door and we had this little chair by our bed and he would come and sit in that chair
Oh.
and we just called it Andrew's chair. And he
Oh,
would come and just tell us about his shift, whether, delivery pizzas, like, oh, you won't believe what happened at this house, or just, whatever.
Mhm.
He would probably sit there for half an hour. It could be 1 in the morning, it could be,
Right.
10:30 at night. And if he didn't, it was just like, Andrew, get down here.
Yeah.
Get in your chair. And I think he really liked it too, whether he would, I mean, it was obviously he initiated it. He would come
Mhm.
yeah.
in. But then when David kinda came along and was out at night and stuff, he doesn't do that. He just goes up
Mhm.
to his
Right.
room, and so we really missed that. We
And different
that
personality types need,
Yeah.
like, I know that my middle child, he will get home from something social and is not going to want to rehash it right away. Like, there's going to need
Right.
to be some time in between. He's going to have to process it himself. And if I
Right.
yeah,
start asking a bunch of questions, it's going to go nowhere. But if
Right.
I wait a while, or even maybe even until the next day and he's relaxed and I bring it up again, I'm going to get more information. Probably still not going to get as much information as I would like, but I
Right.
yeah,
am going to get more.
yeah, you do have to learn to communicate on their terms
Oh, that is so
and
true.
figure out for each kid what that is.
It
Right.
always seems to be late at night.
Yeah.
It does.
And I'm exhausted. And that's when they want to talk.
All right. We kind of talked about this a little bit, but I feel like we should emphasize it some more. What is
Okay.
the best part about having teenagers in the house? Because, of course, I mean, I definitely, when you talk about teenagers with other women, it can really easily descend into, oh my goodness, they're all terrible and it's horrible.
Mhm.
But I've actually enjoyed the time with my teenagers. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
stage of life where you can finally have real conversations. You're finally interested in the things that they're interested in. You no
Mhm.
longer have to pretend that you're interested in Bob the Builder or,
Yeah.
something
Thomas
like
the
that.
Train.
You actually are interested in the things that you're watching together and the entertainment that you go to see together. I mean, you actually are enjoying it. So that's a great time
Mhm.
with your kids.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
I agree. And I while our house wasn't perfect, our kids weren't perfect. We had struggles, real struggles. But overall, I would just say those were really fun years. And I loved having kids in our house. Like you said, Mindy, like having parties and friends over.
Mhm.
We had a lot of traditions that we held at our house with friends. And we were part of this great homeschool community. So our kids' friends, we were friends with their parents. So it was just a
Mhm.
big fun group. And so I miss our kids and I miss their friends that used to be here a lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, and just, you know, you can have meaningful conversations and their interests are more adult, so it's
Right.
it's just fun to share things with them and activities.
I know one of the things I thought about is they're just on the verge of so much promise. Like this life that's ready to be lived, and they're at the beginning, and there's just so many possibilities open. And so that is so exciting to me. Trying to pick out colleges, I think, is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Learning what they might be interested in doing as a
Mm-hmm.
career is very exciting.
Right. I think the
So,
conversations are just the thing that I appreciate the most because my love language is words. And so the fact that you can finally have real conversations is just the best in the car or on vacation, or like some of the conversations that stick out in my mind are when we've been at the beach and we'll all be in the water together. And, you're in the ocean and all of a sudden everybody's kind of swimming in a circle and you just start talking. And you can have just all those conversations just stick out in my mind and I just treasure them. So, when did you start to see a real adult emerge? Or when did you feel like you were coming out the other side with your older kids?
Well, I had two things that came to mind when our oldest son really embraced college. He
Mm,
never cared much for school during the high school, middle school years. He did well. It was just he had to be pushed
mm-hmm,
constantly. I
mm-hmm.
always felt like it was on my shoulders, not his.
uh,
And to see him just take that on in college, it took a little while, but he got there. And that was one of those things that when he was younger, I projected like, oh, I'm never going to see this, but it did happen. It did happen. And then seeing the two boys, they did fight a lot when they were younger. Seeing them as friends now.
Mm,
They my older son's married, and my younger son will go over and hang out and watch movies or whatever, or go to dinner with Andrew and his wife, and that they actually want to spend time together. That has just been such a blessing to see because I did not know that that was ever going to happen.
oh, wow.
right. And that makes you so happy as a parent to see your kids become friends.
Yeah, enjoying each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, I
I'm sure
love
you've
hearing
started
that.
to see that a little bit. I mean, you've probably already seen it, Mindy, but like
I've
when
seen,
Grant and
yeah,
Abby get together, it's
yes,
different than when Abby and Jacob get together.
yes. It absolutely is. Now that she's just moved out, I mean, we're just at the very beginning. So with Abby Ray, I really started seeing some maturity, some ownership happening. It kind of started through her junior year of high school, and then the summer before her senior year of high school. And that was just with the college visits and kind of solidifying what she wanted to do or pursue after high school, which college to go to. Bryce was talking, teaching her financial things, had a budget laid out. I loved seeing her pick a college, kind of a career pursuit.
Mm-hmm.
And so that could still change,
Oh,
but
yeah.
there was just a very big, I saw just a narrowing of her focus. Now, I'm waiting for that with Grant
Right.
because he's just a different kid. There's different personalities, and he's a junior right now. And I think that I'm probably thankful for what Julie said about Andrew because I'm hoping that one day
You
Mm-hmm.
might
it
have to
will
wait longer than
it
you
will no
waited.
longer be on my shoulders. But right now,
Right.
we're waiting.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it takes a while. Like, I didn't really see my oldest as starting to become a real adult until her sophomore year of college. And
Okay.
she had moved into an apartment with three other girls. And all of a sudden, she had to be cooking her own meals, grocery shopping, cleaning. all those things where even in the dorm, a lot of that is still done for you. You know, you have a meal plan and whatever, but when you live on your own, it's different. And I remember she came home, maybe it was fall break or something, and we were eating at the table and the younger kids were complaining about what I had made. And she said, "Oh, you guys don't know how good you have it. I would love to have somebody cooking for me and cleaning for me and taking care of me." And I think just that taste of adulthood made her appreciate us and her home in a way that she hadn't been able to before. Sometimes you can't appreciate things until you've experienced it differently.
Right.
So you don't have those things.
Right. And still to this day, I mean, when she comes home, she's like, "Oh, I'm so glad that someone else is cooking." And I feel that way when I go over to anyone else's house. I mean,
I'll eat anything if somebody else made it.
Me too.
It doesn't matter what it.
I got to pay to go on a cruise to get that.
Right. So that's a sign of a true adult woman when you can appreciate anything that anyone else made for you. What hills have you died on, and what do you wish you would have ignored? Because you always hear people say, "Oh, pick your battles," or "Is that really a hill you want to die on?"
Right. So a hill that we kind of died on with Abby, and I'm thankful that we did, is her getting a high ACT score to pay for college. And she rose to the challenge, and she really had to take that on, which was a difficult task for her to take on, but she did. And she sacrificed, and she did excellent. She brought her score way up. That the same tactic will not work with our oldest son. So I'm thankful that we never lowered our standards with their dating relationships. I mentioned that earlier. I'm thankful that they have been forced to spend time with us. And so that's a hill that we will continue to die on. As exhausting as it is, we will continue to do that.
Did you have anything that you looked back in retrospect and thought, I could have probably let that go?
No, we do things pretty right the first time all the time. I think I blocked those out because I was like, what? I don't know.
Right.
I couldn't. That's bad. But I'm sure there's stuff.
Right.
I'm really sure there's stuff, but I've blocked it out.
What about you, Julie?
Well, I brought John in on this question because I just couldn't think of it. I said, "Do you think we drew some lines in the sand that we should have drawn?" And we both said no. Like we felt pretty good about those lines that we drew. And I asked my youngest, and he actually agreed. He said, "No, I don't feel like anything was unreasonable." But something kind of funny that I immediately thought back on, because Molly and I still laugh about this. I just was brought up saying, my mom would always say, "Julie, you should look your best when you go to church," because I think I didn't care about what I looked like. I was kind of a tomboy, and she was always, wanting me to wear a dress, and I didn't want to wear a dress and all this. So I remember in middle school, Molly was kind of going through a phase like that, and I always wanted her to be in a dress going to church. It's just silly now. It's just embarrassing that I even thought that. But one day she came down in jeans, and she said, "I didn't have anything clean," and it was just right as we were going out the door. So we had to go, in jeans. And I remember in the car getting onto her and actually cried on the way to church.
Did she cry or you?
Me. I was the one crying. And she goes, "Oh, Mom, are you talking?" One time we were talking about it later, and she goes, "Oh, you mean the time you cried because I wore jeans to church?" She still remembers that. She's 26. And I was like, oh, it's so embarrassing. That's awesome. That was something that was really important to me, kind of how my kids looked. Right. And it was, looking back, that is just so stupid. And I did let that go eventually, but I think she was in middle school, I think, at the time. But yeah, that was way too much to take on. And finally, I just
Right. I also asked my kids about this because I just couldn't think. I really do think it's like Mindy. It's like once you've gotten through it, it's like childbirth. You really forget about the things that
go.
But I did think about some hills that I did die on, and my kids brought them up. I died on a lot of media hills, and maybe some of them were good to have died on and some weren't. One of the particular things is my daughter really wanted a cartilage piercing. I hemmed and hawed and looked it up, and it's not that I really had a big objection to piercings. I just didn't want to be the one to say, okay, yeah, let's get you some more piercings. And
Right.
finally, she begged and made me take her to she took a friend, actually, because I said, okay, well, this will be the day we'll do it. We go to Claire's, where she's sitting in the chair with her friend looking on. She's all excited. She's begged for this cartilage piercing. And the lady hands me the paper and says, okay, so you need to sign since she's under 18. And I couldn't sign it. And I said, I am sorry. I said, Abigail, I can't sign it. We're just not going to be able to get it. And her eyes were as big as saucers. The friend was looking at me like I had 3 heads, because who does that in front of a friend? And we're in the mall, and she got so mad. And I just couldn't sign the paper because I just couldn't bring myself to say, yes, let's get more piercings. So she had to get out of the chair. The Claire's lady was like, I've never had this happen before. We had to do the walk of shame out of Claire's. I don't think Abigail spoke to me the rest of the time in the mall. It was terrible. Of course, as soon as she turned 18, she got a cartilage piercing, which was fine with me because I didn't have to sign the paper.
You didn't have to sign the paper.
But there were just some things that I just couldn't bring myself to do. Steve was saying, what about tattoos? I mean, Abigail wanted tattoos, and we said, well, we're not going to sign the paper. So, when she was over 18, she got tattoos. But
that's an adult thing. And that, once they're adults, they can make those decisions.
Right. I just didn't feel comfortable as the mom saying, okay, yes, more to the piercings or more to the tattoos.
Project that into their future. Like, oh, then they'll be covered.
I know. Yeah, there are a lot of battles and a lot of hills that you go up against. And some of them look silly in retrospect. I have plenty of silly ones, I'm sure, like the thing with the clothing. I mean, there's a lot of clothing battles that you fight that later on you think, oh, I could have let that go, or maybe something about their hair. But
I think in hindsight, it's easy to look back and say, oh, I should have let that go. But I have a friend who said, oh, if I had to do it all over again, we just wouldn't have all these rules. And I thought, what I feel like those things gave us structure. Like that's maybe how we got to where we are today. Like, I don't know. It seems like you could have just done it easier without all the rules and the battles. But I don't know. I think those were necessary. And I think you're right. It's like childbirth. We've just kind of forgotten. That's the way it works. Like that, I think those things were probably good decisions.
I think that's why they don't have grandparents in general raise grandchildren, because you can only be hard the first time around.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Because I'm finding it's harder now with my younger 2. I'm like, I'm tired out from the first 2, and I still got to be on, man. I still have to be awake. And as soon as Grant graduates, Jacob starts high school, and Nathan's 2 years behind him. Thank goodness that I can go to the salon and get highlights and stuff, because I'm going to be gray. I'm going to be old.
Hey, watch it.
But I like your hair. Like they're gonna.
But the good thing is, while you're doing the work, your kid is actually getting more fun. And like Julie just went on an awesome mother-daughter trip this weekend with her 26-year-old, and it's like reward for all the years.
Yeah, it was just so fun. And hey, I'll meet you there. We just picked a place, and we got there, and we hiked and biked and kayaked, and we just enjoyed doing a lot of the same things. Ate great food. We didn't have to worry about what the boys would want to eat.
People bemoan the fact that their kids are going to grow up and leave. But I'm here to tell you that when they do grow up, they're even more fun.
Yes.
Yes.
So that seems like a good note to end on. We just want to encourage everyone out there that teenagers are fun. You will make it, and you'll come out on the other side, and you'll be so thankful that you put the time in.
Yes, you will.
Friends, we're so glad you joined us today. We'd love to hear your questions and comments about today's episode, or any suggestions you have for future topics. You can find us at Midlife Matters Podcast on both Facebook and Instagram. You can also contact us at midlifematterspodcast.com. If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to listen to part 1 of Teenage Survival Guide, we encourage you to go back to episode 3. In that episode, you'll hear our answers to many more questions that affect the teenage years. We also hope you'll join us next week as we tackle a listener question that has been a struggle in our own lives. See you then.